The world feeds you a lie, a comfortable delusion dressed in the garb of confidence. It whispers that power resides in the crushing handshake, the forced grin, the relentless chatter that suffocates silence. It tells you to be loud, to be visible, to be constantly performing. This, my friend, is not confidence. It's an act of desperate validation, a frantic plea for attention in a marketplace where attention is the most valuable and often most exploited currency. True power, the kind that dictates outcomes and bends wills, is not loud. It is the antithesis of this performative charade. It is stillness. It is the chilling ability to occupy a room and feel no compulsion to prove a single thing. And when the predictable world expects you to react, to flinch, to engage in its petty drama, you don't. That, my friend, is nonchalance. It is the defining trait that carves an unbridgeable chasm between the truly powerful and the teeming masses of desperate pretenders. Machiavelli, in his chilling dissection of human nature, understood this fundamental truth. The prince who masters the art of appearing undisturbed, even amidst chaos, is already half victorious. The architects of power, the silent orchestrators of nations and markets, grasp a simple, brutal truth. Attention is a finite resource, a precious currency. Every visible reaction you surrender, every flash of raw emotion, every ounce of manifest effort you exert in public is a significant withdrawal from your strategic reserves. It's a payment, often unacknowledged, for the brief satisfaction of participation. The truly nonchalant individual, however, is a miser of this currency. He hoards it. He does not chase the fleeting glare of the spotlight. He does not engage in the exhausting ritual of justification or the self-defeating trap of over-explanation. Instead, he forces the world, in its craving for certainty and response, to work for his time, to earn his words, to desperately seek his approval. This isn't laziness. That's the comfortable excuse of the weak. This is a calculated weapon. Nonchalance is a silent signal, a cold declaration that says, I am untouchable. Nothing you do, no tantrum, no insult, no grandstanding, can pull me from my meticulously crafted center. It's a psychological chokehold that frustrates rivals, driving them to reckless overextension. It seduces allies, drawing them into the orbit of perceived strength and impenetrable calm. It compels enemies to swing wildly, exposing their vulnerabilities in a desperate bid for a reaction you refuse to give. While they flail, you remain unmoved, an obsidian statue amidst a storm. Machiavelli would have recognized it as the quiet mask of dominance, a power so exquisitely controlled it has no need to roar, no need to issue threats. Its very existence is the threat. Once you learn to don this mask, to truly embody this controlled detachment, the tests will cease. The probing questions, the subtle provocations, the attempts to gauge your weakness, they will vanish. Instead, a new, far more potent dynamic will emerge. People will stop testing you and start fearing you. This isn't just about cultivating an outward calmness. It's about stepping outside the emotional storms that trap the rest of humanity. It's about observing the battlefield of human interaction from a vantage point high above the fray, where the petty squabbles and knee-jerk reactions of others become predictable, exploitable patterns. Most individuals are reactive by their very nature. They are conditioned by a society obsessed with instant gratification and immediate response. They are trained to instantly respond to every perceived threat, every trivial insult, every glistening temptation dangled before them. Why? Because silence feels unbearable to them. The void of inaction, the pause, sends shivers down their spine. They need to do something, anything, to feel a fleeting sense of control, even if that action is entirely self-defeating. This is precisely why nonchalance is so profoundly unsettling to the average mind. It denies them the predictable game they are used to playing, the comfortable script of cause and effect. Consider the common archetype: the loud, visibly emotional, overly expressive individual. Their moves are telegraphed, their intentions transparent, their weaknesses laid bare for any astute observer to exploit. They are an open book, and in the game of power, open books are easily rewritten or simply discarded. But the one who shows nothing, the one whose emotional landscape remains a perfectly smooth, unruffled surface, that is dangerous. That forces everyone around them into a state of profound uncertainty. And uncertainty, in the Machiavellian sense, is the fertile ground where fear takes root and blossoms. It's the fog of war applied to every social interaction. Machiavelli, the ruthless pragmatist, enshrined this principle. A ruler must always appear unshaken, regardless of whether the kingdom is thriving under their hand or teetering on the brink of collapse. The mere appearance of stability, he argued, is a form of power in itself. Why? Because perception doesn't just shape reality. In the arena of human politics and commerce, perception becomes reality. If people genuinely believe you are unmovable, a force immune to the tremors that shake lesser men, they will act accordingly. They will defer. They will hesitate. They will comply. Nonchalance, therefore, transforms your very presence into a weapon. You don't even need to initiate action. Your lack of action is often the most devastating strike. It leaves others suspended in a vortex of uncomfortable questions. Are they truly confident? Are they dangerously competent? Are they planning something I can't possibly see? An intricate maneuver I'm too naive to comprehend. Here lies the psychological trap that ensnares the unprepared. The human mind abhors a vacuum. It craves patterns, demands cause and effect, aches for predictability. When you deny them all of this, no tells, no clues, no visible emotional reaction, they are forced to fill those terrifying blanks with their own deepest fears and insecurities. Suddenly, in their minds, you become larger than life, more intelligent, more capable, more dangerous than you might even be in the cold light of reality. This is not self-deception. This is strategic projection. It's why the most effective negotiators, the most formidable leaders, and the most enduring power players throughout history, from corporate titans to geopolitical strategists, have mastered and relentlessly practiced nonchalance. They understood that in any high-stakes confrontation, the one who stays calm longest, the one who can endure the silent pressure, inevitably wins, not because they possess all the answers or the superior hand, but because they force everyone else to act under immense, self-generated pressure. And the first person to move under such pressure, to break their composure, is almost always the one who makes the fatal, unrecoverable mistake. They reveal their hand, expose their vulnerabilities, and surrender their agency. Nonchalance also acts as an impenetrable shield against the relentless tide of manipulation that defines modern existence. The reason propaganda, targeted insults, emotional bait, and the endless stream of outrage in media work so effectively on the majority is disarmingly simple. They react without thinking. They take the bait, reveal their triggers, and expose their true selves. But the nonchalant individual is immune to such crude traps. He watches the bait dangle, a faint, almost imperceptible smile playing on his lips, and he does nothing. He forces the manipulator to waste their precious energy, to exhaust their psychological ammunition, as their carefully constructed narrative of control unravels before their eyes. Your nonchalance should never be mistaken for laziness. Laziness is a passive form of weakness, a surrender to inertia. Nonchalance is an active form of control. It's not about avoiding action. It's about choosing the exact moment to strike, ensuring your move is so perfectly timed, so strategically precise, that it cannot be stopped. In the brutal game of power, the impatient inevitably lose to the merely still. The merely still, in turn, lose to the truly patient. But the patient, for all their virtue, will ultimately lose to the nonchalant, because nonchalance is patience elevated to an art form, a discipline infused with an undeniable, chilling psychological dominance. Look around you, not just in boardrooms, but in the silent battles fought daily across the globe. In business, the one who doesn't rush into a deal, who allows the silence to stretch, often dictates the best terms. In relationships, the one who can genuinely walk away without a flinch, without a backward glance, gains the upper hand. In the brutal arena of politics, the leader who remains composed during a national crisis, even as the world burns behind the curtain, earns the perception of unassailable strength and indomitable will. Nonchalance works because it fundamentally flips the dynamic of power. Instead of frantically chasing approval, you subtly compel others to seek yours. Instead of scrambling for position, you allow others to exhaust themselves fighting for a space you already effortlessly control. And once people begin to labor for your attention, for your respect, for your mere acceptance, you own the pace of the entire game. You decide when the conversation happens, how it happens, and indeed, whether it happens at all. That is true control. That is absolute power. Nonchalance extends far beyond a mere personal shield. It is a sophisticated weapon that bends the psychology of others without uttering a single word. To truly grasp its profound power, you must step into the minds of those who witness its unwavering presence. When you master nonchalance, you transcend the role of a mere participant in social dynamics. You become the silent judge, the one who subtly but irrevocably controls the emotional temperature of the room. And people, whether they articulate it or not, feel it. First, it creates a gnawing uncertainty. Humans are psychologically wired to crave emotional feedback, viewing it as concrete proof of their value, their influence, or their control over a situation. When someone expresses anger, they crave to see fear in your eyes. When they project pride, they expect admiration. When someone attempts to provoke you, their entire strategy hinges on your visible reaction. But your nonchalance, like a psychological black hole, denies them this vital emotional fuel. It leaves them suspended in a brutal psychological limbo, unsure whether their efforts have even registered or if they have failed entirely. This agonizing lack of confirmation drives people deeper and deeper into overthinking, a mental labyrinth where they invariably make mistakes, betray their own anxieties, and reveal their true hand. This is the exploitation trap of modern interaction. Most are so desperate for validation they surrender their strategic position for a fleeting emotional payout. Second, it triggers a profound, almost primal respect, even from your most bitter enemies. The human brain, a product of millennia of survival, instinctively associates composure under duress with competence and superior capability. If you do not panic in a crisis that sends others into a frenzy, you are immediately perceived as capable, as a potential master of the situation. If you do not rush to defend yourself when directly attacked, you are seen as utterly confident in your own position, in your own undeniable truth. Nonchalance communicates, without a single spoken word, that you are not merely in control of your own emotions, but by extension, you are in control of the entire situation. It does not matter if this is empirically true. Perception, remember, is reality. Suddenly, you become the gravitational center around which others, consciously or unconsciously, begin to orbit. Third, it disorients manipulators and exposes their fragile game. Individuals who thrive on emotional games rely on you to play your predetermined role, to get angry on cue, to become defensive, to exhaust yourself explaining. Your nonchalance doesn't just break their script, it shreds it, leaving them on a stage alone, their lines meaningless, their performance falling flat. They are actors waiting for a cue you simply refuse to deliver. The longer you maintain this unsettling composure, the more their carefully constructed strategy unravels. They grow frustrated, then reckless, then sloppy, inadvertently exposing weaknesses that you can then exploit at your leisure, with surgical precision. This is the silent battlefield where the masters operate. Fourth, It wraps you in an impenetrable aura of mystery. Humans are profoundly addicted to filling in the blanks. If you react loudly, predictably, they know your precise emotional state. They can categorize you, reduce you to a known variable. But when you remain calm, detached, and seemingly unshaken, they are forced to guess. And in their desperate attempt to comprehend you, most will guess wrong. They will project power, intelligence, and hidden motives onto you, sometimes granting you far more credit, far more strategic depth than you might even deserve. This mystique makes you incredibly difficult to challenge directly, for how can one fight a phantom, a force whose true nature remains veiled? This is the very essence of Machiavellian psychological warfare. Control the narrative of your own being. Fifth, it effortlessly transmutes pressure into potent leverage. In intense negotiations, heated arguments, or high-stakes confrontations, people are psychologically conditioned to expect escalation. They are emotionally prepared to fight emotion with emotion, fire with fire. But when you refuse to rise to the bait, when you maintain your unyielding calm, the entire balance of power shifts dramatically. They begin to question their own tactics, their own judgment. They wonder if they have fundamentally misjudged you, if they are in grave danger of overcommitting, or if they are unwittingly walking into a meticulously laid trap. Your unshakable calmness acts like a cold, unforgiving mirror, forcing them to confront their own instability, their own frantic energy, and their own underlying fear. Finally, and most crucially, it changes the hierarchy without uttering a single word. In any group, any organization, any geopolitical alliance, the one who maintains superior control over their own emotions almost always ends up controlling the group itself. By remaining composed, even serene, while others react in predictable, emotional bursts, you silently but undeniably position yourself above them. This is why nonchalance was not merely admired, but ruthlessly prized by emperors, cunning diplomats, and the most ruthless, long-game leaders throughout history. They grasped a profound truth. The man who appears least affected, least perturbed by the swirling chaos of the world, invariably appears the most powerful, the most formidable. The psychological effects of nonchalance are not linear. They compound exponentially over time. Each interaction, each demonstration of your unyielding calm builds your reputation as someone who simply cannot be rattled, cannot be easily persuaded, and cannot be broken. People will test you less, they will challenge you less, and, perhaps most tellingly, they will begin to actively seek your approval more, because they will instinctively sense that you are playing a longer, colder, and far more sophisticated game than they could ever hope to comprehend. You are no longer merely a participant in the endless, frantic human drama. You are the one quietly, deliberately writing the script, assigning the roles, and dictating the narrative. This is the ultimate subversion of the common belief that power comes from overt action. True power, Machiavelli understood, often comes from strategic inaction. But here lies the final, most profound twist in this game of power. The true, enduring power of nonchalance is not solely in how others begin to perceive you, but in the radical transformation of how you begin to see yourself. When you systematically train your mind to remain calm under fire, to divorce yourself from the emotional immediacy of events, you cease to live in constant, reactive response to the world's demands. You stop allowing external chaos to dictate your internal pace, your strategic rhythm, and in a world that is hopelessly addicted to noise, to constant stimulation, to perpetual outrage, nothing, absolutely nothing, is more dangerous, more strategically formidable than a mind that simply cannot be provoked, cannot be rushed, cannot be swayed. Nonchalance is not merely an act you perform for an audience. It is a forged armor, an internal state of being. It is the silent, irrefutable announcement that nothing, absolutely nothing, can truly rattle you. Nothing can force your hand prematurely, and nothing, truly nothing, is urgent unless you decide it is. This is not a gift bestowed at birth upon a lucky few. It must be brutally trained, forged in the crucible of pressure, and polished relentlessly until it becomes a visceral second nature. The untrained merely pretend to be calm, a fragile facade that cracks under the slightest stress. The truly trained become calm because they have seized absolute control of their reactions, their internal landscape, and thus their destiny. The rigorous training begins with your fundamental relationship to urgency. Most people in the modern world live as abject slaves to the clock, jerking forward at every insistent ping, every urgent message, every external demand. They are Pavlovian dogs, conditioned to respond. The nonchalant individual, the true master of his domain, does not respond to the world's frantic tempo. He sets it. This is the first, most crucial mental rewrite you must perform, shattering a lifetime of conditioning. Nothing is as urgent as people frantically make it seem. Delay your responses. Pause, genuinely pause, before you react. When you consciously slow down your own rhythm, you subtly begin to starve the chaos and manufactured urgency around you. And, without even realizing it, people will slowly, inexorably, begin to adjust their frantic pace to yours. You become the conductor of their tempo. Next, you must master the ancient art of the unmoved face. The vast majority of humanity leaks emotions constantly, betraying their internal state without even knowing it. The subtle twitch of a muscle, a raised brow, a barely perceptible tightening of the lips, a sudden widening of the eyes. These are micro-reactions that scream your true feelings to the observant eye. The world, ruthless in its assessment, learns your weaknesses by meticulously watching these involuntary betrayals. To train yourself out of this fundamental vulnerability, you must practice remaining utterly still, outwardly impassive, even under extreme discomfort or direct provocation. Imagine sitting across from someone who hurls a direct, cutting insult at you. Your heart rate will climb, your breath will shorten, your internal monologue will scream, but your external expression must remain utterly unchanged, a mask of stone. This is the discipline of emotional opacity, the ultimate poker face of power. You give the world no clue, no crumb of information as to whether its arrows have even grazed you. But being nonchalant is not merely about absolute stillness, about becoming a statue. It is about controlled energy, a focused, potent reserve that radiates silent strength. The truly confident, the true masters, are not inert. They move, they speak, they act with a deliberate, unhurried rhythm that subtly communicates one undeniable message. I have more time than you. I control the clock. I control the outcome. You do not rush to speak. You let silence hang, a heavy, uncomfortable weapon, forcing others to frantically fill it with their nervous chatter, their insecure ramblings. You do not rush to act. You calculate. You observe. You meticulously choose your precise moment to strike. The result is profoundly magnetic. People start to wait for your words, to crave your approval, to anticipate your next move. You have, by your very presence, created a void that only you can fill. The greatest, most insidious enemy of nonchalance is overexposure. In an era of constant digital presence, of oversharing and relentless self-promotion, your aura can collapse with startling speed. If you are constantly present, constantly available, constantly contributing to the noise, your perceived value plummets. The less people see you, the more they will value your rare and deliberate presence when you do choose to appear. Train yourself to withdraw strategically, not in a sulking, obvious, attention-seeking manner, but in a way that seems utterly effortless, natural, and above all, chosen. A short, cryptic message instead of a long, explanatory one. Leaving an event early without justification. Declining invitations without apology or elaborate excuse. You must cultivate the impression that you inherently have more important things to do, more profound concerns, more strategic battles to wage, even if your only actual plan is to read a book in tranquil solitude. The illusion is the power. Another essential training ground, a crucible for your resolve, is your reaction to loss, to setback, to denial. Anyone can appear calm, even magnanimous, when they are winning, when fortune smiles upon them. The true acid test of your cultivated nonchalance is when you are denied something you desperately wanted, when an outcome turns decisively against you, when the market crashes or a deal falls through. Most people, in such moments, lash out in anger, or retreat into self-pitying sulks, or frantically seek scapegoats. You must do neither. You must accept the setback with the same imperturbable calm, the same outward equanimity with which you would accept a resounding win. This does not imply you don't feel the sting, the frustration, the burning desire for revenge. It means you absolutely never allow the world to see it. Behind closed doors, you may plot your intricate return, you may analyze, strategize, and rebuild, but in public, your composure must remain utterly unbroken, a seamless facade of unyielding strength. Your speech, too, must be rigorously disciplined. Those who talk too much are transparent, easy to read, effortlessly provoked, sickeningly predictable. Nonchalance thrives in brevity, in economy of words, in the strategic deployment of silence. Say only what absolutely needs to be said, and deliver it in a tone that is neither rushed nor strained, neither desperate nor overly eager. This forces people to constantly read between the lines, to guess at what you truly mean, to interpret the subtle nuances of your carefully chosen words. That very guesswork creates the perception of profound depth, of hidden strategic brilliance, of absolute control. And above all, internalize this fundamental truth. Nonchalance is not about pretending you don't care. That is the cynical, superficial interpretation of the weak. It's about caring selectively. You are not indifferent to everything. That is apathy, a form of intellectual and emotional death. You are simply immune to anything that does not truly deserve your precious energy, your strategic attention, your limited emotional currency. People who genuinely understand power, who operate at the highest echelons of influence, know that attention is currency, and they spend it like pure gold. They waste it on nothing frivolous. They invest it only where it promises to return maximum influence, maximum leverage, maximum strategic advantage. When this brutal training is complete, when the mask has become your second skin, you will not just notice, you will feel the profound shift. People will begin to treat you differently, profoundly differently, often without even knowing precisely why. They will instinctively lower their voices when they speak to you, as if in the presence of royalty. They will meticulously measure their words, weighing each syllable for its potential impact. They will even hesitate before making requests, as if instinctively sensing that your time, your energy, your approval are commodities of immense value. This is because nonchalance, in its purest, most refined form, is a silent, undeniable display of dominance. It tells the world, in a language more powerful than words, that you cannot be rushed, you cannot be shaken, you cannot be manipulated. You have, through sheer force of will and relentless practice, made yourself utterly untouchable. That is the ultimate end goal. Not merely looking unbothered, but being unbothered, because you are, truly and undeniably, in absolute control. And once you reach that formidable point, others will realize, with a chilling certainty, that they can no longer push you into the frantic, exhausting rhythm of their world. Instead, they will be forced to dance, however reluctantly, to the slow, deliberate, and undeniably powerful music you choose to play. Nonchalance, in its raw, primal form, is simply the absence of visible concern, the unruffled surface of a calm lake. But when refined, sharpened, and wielded with Machiavellian intent, It transcends mere personal attribute and becomes a weapon of immense power. It can disarm rivals, unsettling them into rash moves. It can subtly destabilize and torment enemies, driving them to desperation. And paradoxically, it can even seduce allies, lowering their guard and drawing them into your orbit through the allure of your perceived strength. This potency stems from a deep understanding of human conditioning. People are instinctively wired to chase validation and to react emotionally to external cues. When you surgically remove those expected cues, when you deny them the script they are conditioned to follow, you plunge them into a terrifying void of uncertainty. And uncertainty, as the masters of power have always known, is power. In the cutthroat arenas of politics, the brutal theater of war, and the relentless battles of business, the most dangerous figures are rarely the loud, aggressive ones who posture and preen. They are the calm, collected individuals who never seem rattled, no matter the stakes, no matter the unfolding catastrophe. Their serene composure forces everyone else to question themselves, to fall into a spiral of doubt. Why aren't they worried? What do they know that I don't? Are they truly unshakable, or are they setting a trap? This profound psychological imbalance instantly puts you in control, often without you having to lift a single finger, fire a single shot, or sign a single contract. Weaponizing nonchalance begins with the unshakable understanding that perception is not merely a component of reality. It is reality in the strategic sense. The way you react, or more importantly, fail to react, dictates precisely how others interpret your position, your strength, your intentions. A political leader who appears desperate for approval, for a soundbite, for a poll bump, invites immediate manipulation. A corporate negotiator who visibly flinches at a low offer invites even lower ones. An individual who visibly craves approval or validation in any setting instantly hands over their power, their agency, to those they seek to impress. But a figure who remains serenely unshaken, unperturbed, in moments of chaos or extreme pressure, sends a silent, chilling message. I am in control. I dictate the pace. I decide the outcome. You merely exist within my strategic parameters. Consider the true duelists of history, not those who fought with swords and pistols, but those who fought and conquered with pure, unadulterated presence. The greatest statesmen, the most cunning tacticians, the most feared emperors all knew how to project an almost supernatural composure under the most excruciating pressure. When others lashed out emotionally, they stood still, an unmovable object. When rumors spread, when crises mounted, they neither confirmed nor denied, allowing the seeds of uncertainty to grow, to fester, to disorient their opponents. This strategic restraint was never a sign of weakness. It was the silent tightening of a psychological noose, slowly constricting the enemy's options. You can, and indeed must, employ the same cold, calculated method in your daily battles, in your personal wars for influence and control. When someone attempts to provoke you, to draw you into their emotional drama, do not, under any circumstances, match their energy. Let their anger, their frustration, their performative outrage burn alone, making them look unstable, reckless, and weak, while you remain a beacon of unassailable calm. When someone demands an immediate answer, an instant decision, take your time. Let the silence stretch. A calculated silence can be a far sharper, more devastating blade than 1,000 words, forcing the other party to talk themselves into a corner, to reveal their true anxieties. The less you react, the more they inevitably reveal themselves, their insecurities, their desperation. Nonchalance also masterfully bends attraction, be it social, romantic, or professional, decisively in your favor. In all power dynamics, people are inherently drawn to what they cannot fully possess or completely predict. If you project constant eagerness, if you are always readily available, always seeking engagement, they quickly perceive your value as fixed, as easily accessible as a resource they can take for granted. But if you meticulously maintain an air of selective detachment, a subtle, intriguing distance, you transform yourself into a captivating puzzle. People, driven by an innate human curiosity and a desire for mastery, chase puzzles because they yearn to solve them. And in that relentless chase, in that very act of pursuit, they place themselves willingly, inevitably, into your orbit, sacrificing their own strategic position for the promise of yours. However, weaponizing nonchalance demands absolute, brutal discipline. Many fall short, confusing it with mere laziness, with genuine indifference, or with a general lack of engagement. True nonchalance is profoundly active. It demands constant, hypervigilant awareness, impeccable timing, and an ironclad grip on your own internal and external state. You must continuously read the room, sensing the subtle emotional shifts, anticipating the strategic currents, and deciding, with surgical precision, when to hold back and when, finally, to strike. If you remain distant and aloof at all times, you risk appearing cold, irrelevant, or worse, out of touch with the very reality you seek to control. If you reveal too much, too quickly, you dissolve the carefully cultivated mystery, you shatter the illusion. The true enduring power, the lethal edge, lies precisely in that exquisite, precarious balance. There is also a distinctly offensive side to nonchalance, a darker application, the ability to set intricate traps by deliberately appearing disengaged in certain, carefully chosen areas. You invite others to underestimate you, to dismiss your capabilities. They relax, they overextend, they expose their vulnerabilities, believing they have the upper hand. And when they are most certain of their advantage, most smug in their perceived dominance, that is precisely when you move, with swift, decisive force. In the labyrinthine world of politics, this might mean allowing a rival to believe they are winning, to parade in false glory, only to execute a decisive, unforeseen maneuver at the very last moment, pulling the rug from beneath them. In personal negotiations, it might mean allowing someone to genuinely think you are indifferent to a deal, that you don't care about the outcome, until you suddenly and unexpectedly push for terms entirely in your favor, terms they are then too exposed to resist. The inherent danger of visible ambition, of overtly displaying your hunger for power, is that it immediately alerts others to your plans, to your true intentions, forcing them onto guard. Nonchalance, however, hides your hunger, your ruthless ambition, behind an impenetrable veil of calm, a mask of serene indifference. It conceals your true intentions, allowing you to position your pieces on the board, to move your forces into position until it is far too late for the other side to mount any meaningful defense. This is precisely why the most successful power players in history are often profoundly underestimated in the beginning. They intuitively understand how to seem detached, how to appear unconcerned, while quietly, methodically, setting the entire board in their favor. To master this requires training not only your outward expression, but your inner dialogue, your very internal landscape. If you are seething with frustration, with anxiety, with raw emotion internally, it will, inevitably, eventually leak through, compromising your mask. The real art is to genuinely detach from the outcome itself, to release the desperate need for it, while still pursuing your goals with unwavering precision and ruthless intent. This is not apathy. It is a profound, controlled intent, a detached yet relentless pursuit. You move toward your objectives without needing constant external reassurance, without craving the validation of others. That, and only that, is the authentic posture of a ruler, an orchestrator, not a subject, not a pawn in someone else's game. When your nonchalance is authentic, a true reflection of your internal mastery, it will be utterly impossible for others to genuinely rattle you. Competitors will grow frustrated. their efforts at provocation bouncing off your impenetrable calm. Negotiators will grow cautious, their bluffs losing all potency against your unreadable resolve. Admirers will grow obsessed, drawn in by the mystique of your controlled power. You will dictate the rhythm of every interaction, the cadence of every negotiation, and those who wish to engage with you, to participate in your world, will have no choice but to match your deliberate, unhurried, powerful pace. In a world drowning in emotional outbursts, in desperate posturing, in the frantic scramble for fleeting attention, the one who can truly sit in silence, who can watch, and who can patiently wait, holds the deadliest, most decisive advantage. Your calm, your serene indifference will be fatally mistaken for weakness by the unsuspecting masses until the terrifying day you use it as the perfect, undetectable cover for a decisive, pre-planned strike. That is when they will finally understand, far too late, that your stillness was not peace. It was the poised, honed edge of a hidden blade. Nonchalance is indeed a weapon, a formidable one, but like any blade, it possesses the chilling capacity to cut the wielder as easily as its intended target. You must understand its inherent limits, its dangerous edges, or you will tragically confuse genuine control with cold apathy, authentic confidence with arrogant contempt, and strategic mastery with pure negligence. The world is tragically filled with those who desperately try to imitate the calm, the detached demeanor of true power, but who ultimately end up drowning in the pathetic performance of their own superficiality. They forget that nonchalance is a precision tool, a strategic instrument, not a permanent, unthinking state of mind. A soldier who never unsheathes his sword, however beautiful, dies with it, rusting uselessly in its scabbard. The first, gravest danger is misreading the crucial moment. There are times when even the most cultivated composure, the most ironclad stillness, must give way to swift, decisive, and often brutal action. Too much stillness in the face of a fleeting opportunity is not power, it is paralysis, a fatal form of strategic inertia. If the king hesitates to issue a command in the heat of battle, his army will inevitably fracture and fall. Your calm must be merely the unruffled surface of the water, not the stagnant depth of your very soul. Beneath that placid exterior, there must always be a relentless, calculated movement, a powerful, unseen current. The second danger is the insidious slide into indifference. If your nonchalance becomes habitual, a default setting for every interaction, you risk losing your vital capacity for genuine engagement, for true strategic awareness. You will stop seeing the subtle, shifting currents around you, the critical movements on the board, and the entire game will inexorably pass you by. The strategist who consistently ignores every move made by their opponents will one day wake to find the entire board decisively flipped against him. In this chilling sense, too much detachment, too much feigned indifference, can become a profound form of self-sabotage, rendering you utterly blind to emerging threats until they are quite literally at your throat. This is the nihilistic trap of emotional withdrawal, the desert of the soul where even victories feel hollow. The third danger, a particularly Machiavellian one, is provoking silent, unseen enemies. To appear too untouchable, too dismissive, is to awaken a deep-seated, simmering resentment in those who feel ignored. There are those who can tolerate open arrogance, even direct challenge, but none who can tolerate the profound, dehumanizing feeling of being utterly invisible to you. If they genuinely believe you dismiss them entirely, that you hold them in utter contempt, they will not confront you openly, where your composure might protect you. They will conspire in the shadows, in the quiet corners, where your public mask offers no defense, no shield. Remember, a calm, unreadable face may win the immediate battle of appearances, but it can also, paradoxically, inspire the silent, unseen war you never knew was coming, a war fought with whispers and daggers in the dark. The fourth danger is the catastrophic misuse of nonchalance in personal, intimate bonds. Nonchalance is a formidable weapon in the brutal theater of politics, in the high-stakes dance of negotiation, in the grand stage of public power. But when carried, unadulterated, into close personal relationships, it does not build, it corrodes. If those closest to you never see you truly moved, never see you bleed, never see you genuinely vulnerable, they will inevitably doubt your loyalty, question your humanity, and eventually withdraw their trust. A ruler can afford to be cold in counsel, to be utterly ruthless in strategic planning, but they must know when to be warm, when to be human, when to be truly available in those rare, critical moments that secure the unwavering loyalty and profound devotion of their most valuable allies. Power does not demand you to be emotionally unavailable. It demands you to possess the supreme wisdom to know precisely when to be. And finally, the ultimate danger, the most profound betrayal, believing your own mask. The greatest, most subtle risk of cultivating nonchalance is that it can slowly, inexorably, detach you not just from others, not just from the world, but ultimately from your true self. If you wear the armor for too long, if it becomes an inseparable part of your identity, you risk forgetting what it truly feels like to be without it, to be authentically human. You become untouchable, not because you are genuinely strong, but because you have become hollow, a ghost in your own machine. The mask, the strategic persona, should always be something you can take off at will, a tool you consciously deploy, never something welded permanently to your face, dictating your very being. Machiavelli, with his chilling pragmatism, would tell you this. Power demands supreme adaptability. If you are ice in winter, be fire in summer. If you are a statue in public, be a whispered promise in private. The deadliest players on the grand stage are not always those who look unshakable. They are, in truth, those who choose precisely when to look unshakable and when to be something else entirely. Nonchalance, at its absolute peak, is a meticulously crafted performance, a strategic illusion. It is not about how you feel deep within your core. It is about what others, your rivals, your allies, your pawns, are conditioned to believe you feel. The moment you start practicing it for your own internal satisfaction, for your own ego, rather than for the strategic audience you seek to influence, you have crossed a critical line. You have ceased to wield it. It now, frighteningly, wields you. You have become the puppet of your own carefully constructed image. The final, absolute rule, etched in the blood of kings and empires. Stay unreadable, but never, ever unresponsive. Stay composed, but never, ever inert. Stay above the noise, above the frantic clamor, but never so far above that you cannot hear the faint, ominous drumbeat of impending danger. Because the very moment you forget that your calm is a meticulously honed weapon, a strategic instrument of power, it will, without mercy, become your coffin.